Well, Rick DeLuca and I unfortunately had hoped that we could kind of get through the forecast here and talk about what to expect for Thurby, Oaks, and Derby. Unfortunately, we need to talk about a tornado now. This is the storm that Rick and I have been tracking for a while. The storm's coming into Lawrence County with a history of producing golf ball size hail. Tornado or not, if you get golf ball size hail, this will wreck your roof and this will wreck your vehicle. So you need to be aware.
Bryant has been in business since 1940. We're one of the few family-owned and operated HVAC companies in the area.
Lawrence County until 7:15, and this thing has an incredibly structure, incredible view of it as we look at it from Storm View 3D, and it has been a very strong storm for some time now. So the severe thunderstorm with tornado possible is moving towards southern Lawrence County. Spice Valley, you need to be aware of this, Mitchell, and then south of Bedford. That's where we have this ongoing right now. A strong, again to severe thunderstorm with a potential tornado possible is moving towards Spice Valley. Rick, this has a very, very notable hook on it. The hook is where the rotation is located. Since we have that rotation on that southwest side of that storm, that's where the tornado would occur. So if you're in the Huron area, if you're in Spice Valley, if you're in Mitchell, you've got to really, really be careful right now.
Mark, that is, I mean, textbook classic supercell that you would see. It's got the main body on the north side, and then it has that tail or that hook on the southern side. And if there was going to be a tornado, the southern side is what we'd have to watch. So those areas like Mark just mentioned, Huron, Spice Valley, moving through Bryansville, that's going to be the location. And there's also a secondary threat, hail, which has been at times near ping pong, which is 1.5 inches, but also golf ball size hail. Just imagine that, standing outside and having golf balls raining down at your house. The damage that can cause is significant. So please, now is the time to be indoors. If you live in Bryansville, Spice Valley, Mitchell, Huron, you need to be inside right now because this storm is bearing down. And the other thing about this storm, there's nothing else nearby. So when you have a storm by itself, it doesn't have to share energy with any of those other storms. And this is one of those storms, Mark, that has all the energy it has in the atmosphere to feed on. So nothing to take away from that, unfortunately.
And so these are what we call classic supercells. A classic supercell is a little bit different than the type of storm that we would see sometimes when we're talking about in spring. A lot of the storms that we get here during spring will be the type of storms where you actually cannot see within the thunderstorm the structure in any way, shape, or form. This is just not that scenario at all here. This is a scenario where we have a thunderstorm that is alone. It's got a lot of fuel. One of the really important parts to this storm is that it is along a boundary. And so being along this kind of quasi-stationary boundary, this essentially warm front, allows it to move along that warm front and to be rotating. And a storm like this then has the ability to produce large hail. From there, the question will be is, can this drop a tornado or not? But if you're in Spice Valley, look, be prepared. You're at minimum going to see some golf ball size hail. Bryantsville, the Hartleyville area, and Rabbitville. These are areas where, as I noted, at minimum, you're going to see large hail. Rick, obviously the other part to that is, as we've looked at rotation here along the storm, what we have seen on this storm is that it is showing uptick and downtick. And right now we're in a scenario where we don't have a lot of low-level rotation. So I would say, and I think you'd agree, that our greatest concern right now would be the hail on this one.
Absolutely, Mark. And the thing is, it's the uptick and downtick is why you have to watch this one consistently. You can't really turn your back on it because sometimes it's not concerning. Other times it is. But that hail core on the northern side, it just has not dropped. So we have these updrafts, and these updrafts can help suspend those hailstones into the storm a lot longer. And the longer they're up there, the larger they can become. And so at some point, the updraft's not strong enough to support that hail anymore, and it drops out. And that's why we are seeing that hail approaching Spice Valley. Listen, if you're in Bryansville, you have a couple minutes. If you needed to get your car inside, you can play it safe, but I need you to run right back in the minute you do so because you are still under a tornado warning. And we track this off to the east. And just to give you a couple locations where that tornado threat is greatest is Huron and Mooresville. Those are the two that you have to watch out particularly. And this is going to go over the 50 corridor. And like we said, Lawrence County, this is your problem right now. we're not seeing any severe weather across the rest of the area. This is a sole problem that we have in Lawrence County. So a severe thunderstorm just off to the west of that. This is a tornado-warned storm. And Mark, we were watching these storms kind of billow up. And on a day like this, there's hardly any other clouds nearby, so it's kind of interesting to see how these storms have formed, the structure of these, and they have a lot, and I mean a lot of juice to feed off of. It's warm, it's humid, you step outside, I mean, you're sweating a little bit. You know what's going on. So clearly, it has that fuel to work with. We're trying to, we're going to probably angle this camera a little bit to try to find that storm. But that's a live look right now in Seymour. We're going to use these cameras.
You can see the anvil on the top of that. So that air rising at a very rapid pace, in this case probably 80 miles an hour, hits the top portion of the weather-producing atmosphere and then spreads out. And that what you see aloft there is the anvil of that storm that's spreading out. It's what we call a classic supercell. This is not the type of thunderstorm that we normally see within our area. This is a different type because this is the kind that you would normally see out in the plains. And part of the reason is that there's just nothing else around it. So you have this unique scenario where you can see basically the full structure within that storm. And I'm going to view in, as this obviously gets closer to our camera and Seymour, we should be able to get more and more detail. But you can very clearly see that's looking into that thunderstorm. The updraft there in the middle with the rain coming down on the left is if there was to generate a tornado, that would be the area that we would be watching. This storm may take on the shade or the appearance, which would be more green because of the hail size in this one. And it is not small hail. As I noted, we're talking about significant hail potential on the storm. If you live in Spice Valley, hail to the size of golf balls moving over you as we speak right now. Bryantsville, the Hartleyville area, and Yawkey through around Mitchell. So Mitchell's going to see the area of rotation. The northern side of the warning here would more than likely get the hail. That's going to be Spice Valley, Bryantsville, and the Hartleyville area. I do want to show you the wide perspective just so you get a sense of what else is going on. Rick, we have had other thunderstorms in our area. These are different. These thunderstorms don't have the added rotation potential of that front. Now, these are still thunderstorms, and this is the one that went through Louisville, but what's going on in Campbellsburg is not the same as what's going on in Lawrence County right now.
There's something extra. There's something extra that the storms have to work on that creates that spin, which is why the storm that worked its way up 71, which began in Louisville, did not go severe, hasn't gone severe, and will not go severe. But still, I mean, don't let your guard down. There's going to be lightning. You need to be indoors. There are downpours associated with that. And sometimes you can get some gustier winds as these storms go down. But, in Louisville right now, we just had that storm. We have the steamboat race ongoing right now.
I know.
Thankfully, the closest showers that we have are up 65 around Charlestown, Henryville. Not seeing much, if any, lightning with those. But, you got a lot of people out in the river, so we're trying to keep an eye on them as well. But obviously, Lawrence County has all of our attention right now.
Yeah, and so to be clear, the storm near Campbellsburg, this is going to be in Henry County, is not severe right now. But we want to mention Carrollton storms moving in your direction, lightning, thunder. Be aware if you have any outdoor plans that you need to use some caution. The only show right now, the big storm right now, is going to be this storm. The hail continues to be sizable looking on it. Every time that radar scan goes by, you can see it halos the hail core.
Yeah, that purple.
Right, and that is just north of Spice Valley. Golf ball size hail. I mean, this is not the kind that's going to be tapping. This is the kind that'll pound the side of your house. This would resemble the size hail that we saw that did all the damage coming through around the New Albany area, that went through Jeff. Right. That is the size of hail we're talking about. Hayden Rostevsky went through that. And she can tell you it is not a comfortable scenario when you have hail that size. So look, if you're in the Bryantsville area, you've probably got about another 2 to 3 minutes before you don't try to move the car. If you're trying to move it, if you're in Hartleyville, if you're in Bedford, I would get the vehicle inside right now. Yeah. I think if you're in Bedford, you've got time. Get the vehicle inside or under cover. Prep yourself. Because this is a supercell. We know that supercells are just not going to fall off the map.
No.
This is going to stay around, so you can be proactive and thinking about, you know what, I've got 15 minutes, let me still get the vehicle inside, because after about, I would say 12 minutes in Bedford, that window will have passed where it's just too close to you. Right. But, you can prep now.
And Mark, I mean, this actually, so they just kind of updated tornado warning just to expand it a little bit. So now, basically, all of southern Lawrence County and central Lawrence County is under a tornado warning. The actual hook itself is going to stay south of Spice Valley, but Spice Valley I can only imagine you are in that hail core. And Mark, you have an update from the Weather Service?
Yeah, so we've got a report right now of a wall cloud that's west of Mitchell, Indiana, 100% reliable because we know that the storm is a rotating thunderstorm. So what you're going to see as this storm approaches, if you are in Mitchell, and you're looking towards the storm, what you're going to see on the right is the dark big body of the storm. You will see the maybe a green appearance, you will see rain, and you will see it'll look dark. If you then look just to the left of that, what will occur on a scenario like this is you'll have what we call the updraft base or rain-free area. Under that rain-free area, there's going to be an area that lowers. The area that lowers is called the wall cloud. Now, if a tornado forms, it would form out of that wall cloud. So again, what you're going to see if you're east of this storm is the big rain shaft just west of that, a rain-free area. And underneath that rain-free area, if we generate a tornado, it's going to occur in this area. Doing a scope inside that storm, Rick, the rotation right now, it still looks like it's rotating.
Correct.
It hasn't really flashed the red light to us at this point right now.
No, I mean, and that's kind of back to the point you made, that it's been pulsing up, it's been pulsing down. We've seen it tighten, we've seen it broaden, we've seen it tighten, and it's just kind of that cycle that keeps going and going and going. So at some point, this is one of those scenarios where you always want to play it safe. You never want to risk it because when you tighten up, I mean, it can happen in a matter of minutes.
Exactly, one scan.
One scan, and you don't want to be caught off guard. Is it worth the risk for you and your family? No. Is it an inconvenience? Sure, absolutely. It's now 6:56. You're probably trying to have some dinner, you know, kick your feet up, relax, maybe watch some TV shows aside from maybe us talking about tornadoes.
Right.
But, you know, this is definitely a real threat, and we wouldn't be on here doing this unless it was. So if you're in Lawrence County, please, you need to go to your safe place now.
And I'm going to head over to the wall real quick because
Okay.
I want to just do some tracking on this. I want to do two specific tracks, Rick. I want to track the hail core specifically and then the updraft area. That way we can kind of identify the risks for each area. So Bedford is county seat out of Lawrence County. Bedford right now not in the tornado warning, but that doesn't mean that the sirens will not be going off. So what Rick's going to do is first track the hail core. What I want you to note is where the golf ball size hail could form and fall, so that you get a sense of where that would be so you can prepare for hail. And then the areas that we would be wanting to then be more prepared about for potentially for a tornado. So in around 6 to 9 minutes in the Coxton area, about 14 to 18 minutes from now in Terry Park, golf ball size hail. I'll say it again, it'll trash a vehicle. There's just no other way to put it. Inglewood around 19 to 24 minutes from now, and then Bedford, Indiana. It's possible that the hail core goes just to your south, but if it holds, it's about 30. Now, Rick's going to track the tornado producing or potentially producing part of the storm, where the rotation is located, so we can get some locations for you and when. 17 minutes from now, it is going to be in the Bryantsville area. So you're like, well, Mark, this kind of doesn't make full sense, buddy. You just said that it's going to get to my area before the rotating part. Right. The hail is in front of it. And you've probably heard sometimes people say, I got rocked with the hail, I got all the rain, and then the hail stopped, and that's when the tornado hit. So you need to understand that the lightning, the thunder, the rain, the hail would actually precede the tornado. And if we have one, here's the hook on this one. Rotation is over Spice Valley. I'm glad to see as I look at this that the rotation continues to look what I would refer to as marginal. Rick, I don't see a sign right now that says tornado on the ground. And then, you know, the reality is on this, the Weather Service chose tornado warning. I don't think either of us probably have an issue with that because it's been pulsing. Right. I think that you could have gone severe with tornado possible on it, but I still think at some point we might have seen a pulse and got a tornado warning either way. And I don't really, I think under the conditions with a front, you and I have dealt with fronts like this, these kind of quasi-warm fronts, and we've seen over the years that these have the ability to produce tornadoes. They are something that we need to kind of elevate our concern a little bit more on.
It's a situation that we've seen time and time again, and what I've done is kind of rocked back into the past and then move in the future. And look right there.
Right, and that was at 6:39, by the way. You can see the time on the top there.
Right, so that's when you see the rotation. I mean, banked up. That's what we call gate-to-gate shear, when the reds and the greens are right next to one another, which was just to the north and to the west of Widow Valley.
And I'm going to put an arrow on there for you.
Okay, so we'll go back right to there.
And that's when we had the tornado warning that was issued, Rick.
Correct.
So that's then, and then Rick's going to show you the now.
And here's now. So you notice far less organized, broader rotation. You don't have that really tight, bright area with the greens and the reds right next to one another, which tells us, I mean, up in the upper levels, the storm is still rotating. But, you know, when I look at that, I don't see that's a tornado on the ground whatsoever.
No. And I think you might even be able to justify severe with tour possible at this point.
Right.
But you know, the reality is that there's a tornado warning till 7:15. We're going to continue to keep an eye on that. Normally what happens when we start to see a scenario where the rotation comes down a little bit, let's look at reflectivity. I just want to see what the interaction between these two storms are. So a couple things, we don't see the hail core maybe as giant as it was. Those purples are now more of the reddish color, which is a positive.
Big indicator of the fact that the storm may not have it doesn't have the same intensity that it once did.
So we're probably looking at quarters now, but quarters are still a hail that maybe not will trash a car, but it is still something to worry about. We zoom out a little bit because there is that storm that's behind it, and that storm is clearly being affected in a negative way by the front runner. So, you know, if this was the storm in the back, I wouldn't be as concerned, but it's a front runner, and as we talk about this a lot, Rick, there's no competition. This has all of that warm, humid air. So from a fuel perspective, this is the show. I mean, the storm in the back is getting beat up. The storm in the front has no inflow disruption, and it can be stronger.
That's absolutely true. And you see nothing else surrounding it when you look at that radar view. I mean, there's nothing in French Lick. There's nothing in Paoli, nothing in Campbellsburg. So the air that it's ingesting is still that rich, moist, very warm air that storms love to feed on. I mean, that's what they like to eat. So again, if you're in southern portions of Lawrence County,
the warning on the back one.
Okay, so then we're just watching this one storm. I just want to make sure we have nothing else going on because you know, in a situation like this, these storms can pop up rather quickly. And if you look outside, you could actually see how tall some of those towers are growing, and the taller they get, the stronger those storms tend to become. So if you're outside and you see those very tall towers, you know, chances are lightning will follow shortly. We do have one shower with some downpours now crossing over 65 south of Henryville, and this is just moving north of Memphis into the Otisco area. Another area of non-severe storms, this is in Carrollton. So in Carrollton, you know, blinding rainfall definitely hitting you right now. Same in Monitor. There's some lightning that's moving into Worthville. Campbellsburg is now on the back side. And areas like Newcastle, the rainfall has just ended for you. That's going to track off to the east again as a non-severe storm. And aside from that, we don't have anything else really brewing around the area. There's a couple of showers around Salem, and just that lone tornado warning is the only thing giving us some issues.
And we've got some pictures coming. If we can go over to weather pictures, weather pics. This was a storm when it was approaching out of Lagodi, Indiana, approaching Lawrence County. That is. So I'm going to go over to the weather wall real quick because I want to show you kind of what you're seeing. You can see the seeds in there. So this is, at least in my opinion, golf balls, but you can see there's some extensions. I get asked a lot, why does it look like this? So let me explain to you what's going on with that hail core. If we could stay with weather pics on that, because I'd like to show that, the hail. But I want to show you what's actually occurring and what we can tell. People sometimes ask me, how does hail get that large? Hail gets that large when it's able to cycle through a thunderstorm. So the hail goes up in the thunderstorm. Let's say it generates up to pea-size hail. It then starts to fall out of the thunderstorm. It's pulled then back into the updraft of the thunderstorm and goes back through a second time. So notice there's a seed in the middle right here. See that little tiny hail? So then it started to fall, got pulled back into that updraft again. Now you can see a second seed. So this was much larger when it made its second round through because the storm was stronger. The air was rising at a faster pace. That means it could support it. So it could support larger hail. It started to fall back out, and then you can see it got pulled back in a third time as now you're looking at the outer edge. Each one of these spikes would be where a raindrop hit the super cold hail and froze instantaneously on contact. So you can see these are the spikes, and you can see the seed, the second seed, and the outside. Keely Moran sent this picture in out of Lagodi, Indiana. And Rick, you're watching that storm still, but that is a really good example to see what a storm looks like and the hail and why it's doing what it's doing. It is incredible to see that as that hail continues to grow in that storm. On StormView HD right now, we're watching to see, this is a second one from Keely. This is also out of the Lagodi area.
It's a little smaller.
Yeah, but, you know, but the good thing here that I'm seeing on this, by the way, is it's not wind-blown. Wind-blown golf balls will trash also siding on houses. So this is more of a real threat for vehicles. And look, we're showing you this even though it was out of our area. It was shared with us on my Facebook page because we want you to prepare. Rick, what we're seeing now is the core of that storm staying static state right now near the Coxton area, but maybe starting to generate a secondary little hook. So if you're in the Rabbitville area or Mitchell, it is time to take your tornado safety precautions.
Right. And I just want to, again, like we did with velocity, I want to show you how strong this storm was. Right there, we had that pronounced hail core.
And could we just take that full real quickly? I'm just going to work on another computer if we could, guys. Thank you.
So you had the hail core, you had the hook on the bottom side. As it moved into Spice Valley, the hail core was still pronounced, but then it quickly kind of fell apart a little bit where the hail core wasn't as strong, where the actual hook itself almost disappears. But now we're seeing kind of a resurgence here just to the west of Bryansville. So if you are in Bryansville, while we're saying the storm is not as strong, you still need to be in your tornado safe place because that could spin up pretty rapidly. Not seeing anything crazy intense when it comes to rotation. In fact, what I can do is turn on the, where is that? The velocity scope. There I go. And just to make sure that I'm not seeing anything inside the storm, think of these scopes as kind of like an X-ray, if you will. Because you look at reflectivity, what you typically see when we show you on TV, the storm right there, and you can't really tell if it's rotating or not, aside from the fact that it's a classic supercell. So what we do is we have these scopes. We have one for hail. We have one for echo tops at the height of the storm. We have one for CC, which is correlation coefficient. If it was on the ground doing damage, that's the tool we would use. But right now, we're relying on velocity to see if this is actually gaining strength when it comes to rotation. I'm not seeing anything that tells me we're really seeing it twist back up quite a bit. But like we've said before, it's more of a up and down kind of scenario. We're in a steady state now where it's not quite as strong, but nonetheless, this is still an issue for Lawrence County. And if this holds together and it continues, Jackson County is the next one in line. So if you're in Jackson County or you have friends and family in Jackson County, you want to just kind of give them a heads up, say, hey, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see number one, a severe thunderstorm with hail, with some winds, but perhaps even a tornado warning or two possible. And the simple reason for that is there's really nothing that's going to disrupt this storm in the coming hours. So maybe just give some of your neighbors eastbound a quick little heads up. We are still watching the storm with that tornado warning for another 8 minutes mark. At 7:15, this one's going to be allowed to expire. This is out of the Indy Weather Service. I know it's kind of confusing. We have 3 Weather Service offices that serve our area. We have Louisville, we have Indy, and we also have the office out of Cincinnati. So, I mean, it's really difficult in terms of, you know, just one area because we have 3 weather services working together to protect everyone. So we're watching this one in particular, not seeing anything crazy when it comes to rotation, Mark. But, I mean, again, it's something we're going to keep an eye on. And I'm just checking with the Indy Weather Service just to see what their feeling is right now. For what it's worth, the rotation on it is not something that would be alarming right now. I would be most concerned about potential for hail on this storm south of Coxton, and it's going to be close to the Bedford area. It will probably end up just south of Bedford, but it's going to cross Indiana 37. And this has a history of producing really large hail. I've got a picture now also out of the Lagodi area, and that is actually bigger than golf ball. This may have been almost baseballs that it produced earlier. So our concern would be, could it pulse upward? That is something that we're going to continue to watch. The view of the storm from Seymour, this is from our camera on Seymour looking towards it, so you can get a good sense of the structure of this thunderstorm. So this in here is the core of the rising air. Everything gets sucked in and pushed upward. It gets pushed upward into the storm, and then it gets pushed outward as it hits basically the upper portion of the weather-producing part of the atmosphere. What you see here is the rain area underneath, the rain and the hail, and then it's a tough view still right now, but this area right here is where the updraft base of this thunderstorm is. We cannot see at this distance right now if there is
any lowering on it, but we do have reports out of Mitchell that there was a lowering on the storm. When we look at it from StormView HD, the rotation on it is not ultra strong. The Weather Service will have a decision to make in the next 6 minutes on whether they go severe with tornado possible or with stay with a tornado warning. I think that based on the last few scans, if it was me, I'd probably go severe with tornado possible, only because the more persistent rotation is now about 20 minutes old.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's not rotation, but the more persistent. Number two, the hail size on the storm has come down versus what looked like borderline baseball size hail earlier. It's probably still producing quarters, and that is going to go very close to Bedford, Indiana. We've got some friends up there. Rick and I have a guy we used to work with that we were texting to let him know, be careful. I think that today, in a sense, fell under the radar to an extent. And it's not that we weren't noting that there was a severe potential. We very specifically said that some tornadoes could occur. But I do think that sometimes when you come after a day that underproduced, where we had an enhanced risk yesterday, I think sometimes people look at it and are like, and maybe don't take it as seriously. So the Weather Service has now given us their hand. They have played the card. You can see what they have now is a severe thunderstorm warning after the tornado warning. Rick, you've got nope, not up there yet, but when you do,
just waiting on that.
Let me know if that's going to be tornado possible. I suspect it will. But you can see a second severe thunderstorm warning now is extending outside of that tornado warning, which means the Weather Service has at least given us some sense that they're going to go on severe with tornado possible. They said for downstream planning, somebody's asking for others, what are they expecting with the tornado warned cells? So the Weather Service has at least shown us that they're going to go with severe with tornado possible. And Rick, you have the latest information on that new warning that would then go after the tornado warning expires in 4 minutes.
Right, so here are the threats moving forward. Wind gusts to 60. There's still the threat for hail, which is over an inch in diameter, 1.25.
Okay.
Which, again, is not the ping pong size hail. A touch smaller than that. And it's certainly not what we saw before. I mean, there was even a couple pictures which resembled nearly tennis ball size hail. Yeah. There's also the tornado possible. And of those three, that's the most important. Now, again, this has produced more hail than anything else. That's just the history of the storm. It's what it's done. We have evidence from the videos and the pictures that came in. And moving forward, you can't rule out those pops of hail. And the tornado possible, you know, it's probably when you hear that the most threatening thing out of all of it for obvious reasons. But we're going to keep an eye on this thing. We're not going to turn our back. We're not going to let you go. We're going to keep an eye on the storm itself. And, you know, 7:15 is when the storm warning expires. Right. So let's say this expires, we go off air. And then it happens to wrap up once again. We jump right back in. But Mark, looking at the storm structure, it's just not what it once was.
No, I think that severe with tornado possible was the right move. What it does, can it maintain strength? Well, one of the things that we know is we've exited now peak heating. So peak heating, the warmest part of the day, what time was that? Well, that was at around 5 p.m. So we're not quite as warm right now as we were, but we are still we're coming down. Over the next 2 hours, we know that you get even cooler and cooler. And ultimately what happens is the lower part of the atmosphere starts to stabilize. Stabilizing the lower atmosphere is important because that makes it much more difficult to get a tornado down to the ground. So you transfer from peak heating with a tornado possible to maybe primarily hail. And then from there, we transition into thunderstorms that'll just pull out of our area. Rick, you've got a track on this storm real quickly.
Right, that's as a whole. So this is including both the southern side and the northern side. That's going to be in Crawford in about 9 minutes. This should be in Buda in 21, give or take a little bit. And then Norman, if this storm can hold together, and that's going to be key. If it can hold together, then it would arrive in about a half hour. This thing isn't moving all that fast. I mean, the storm motion itself is only 20 miles per hour to the northeast. I mean, sometimes we see storms racing like 70 miles an hour across the area. This one's moving much slower. In the positive, you can get ready. You can see it coming. You can prepare.
You got it.
On the negative, though, if you're underneath that, it's going to last quite a while. So hail, tornado, and some gusty winds, the main three threats. But moving forward, the tornado threat come down. Hail has certainly been the word of the day with this one. So Bedford, get ready. There's still some tiny hail, which could be up to an inch in diameter, which is going to move through probably within the next 15-20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and it looks like the hail core is going to go right on the southern side of Bedford. So if you're in Bedford, Indiana, it is now not the time to go out and move your car. That window has now closed. The rain's obviously falling already. The hail core itself specifically is about 18 minutes from being in Bedford, but there may be some smaller hail that precedes that. It has shown at times rotation. It very clearly has at least a little minor hook on the southern side of it. Rick, I'm going to head over to the weather wall. We've got about another 50 minutes. I just want to do a quick track on what we have and go to the wide perspective. Let's go wide on what we have and then come back to the storm, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. So Rick's taking this out to the wide perspective right now, and you can see, so the storms that we had that went through Louisville are now moving through Carrollton and then moving through Henry County. So Carroll and Henry County and pulling away from us. There isn't even much lightning left here, so that's a positive. Why the difference? It's the front. It's the front. But Rick can show you the tail of lightning. Remember, lightning goes back on this for about 30 minutes. So these were the lightning strikes as it was moving through Bedford, but now in the current, not as many. This one's still producing some in Henry County. We've got a downpour that's generated near the New Washington area and Salem. This is not really taking off. Why? Again, it's separated from that quasi-warm front. And then we move to the north, Rick. Last touch on this storm. There is no longer a tornado warning on it. Let's just do one last scope on this storm before we wrap up that particular storm.
Let's go to the velocity scope just to make sure. And it's still, there's rotation inside. It's just a bit more diffuse than we've ever seen.
But it may, I mean, here's the thing. Could it come back up? Yeah, it's still a supercell thunderstorm. So I would tell you that we're going to watch it. Rick and I will be continuing to monitor this storm. As it stands right now, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire. It is a supercell with some minor rotation. We don't feel that it's enough right now to keep in on constant programming. Understand, we'll continue to monitor the storm really closely. Should it come up in intensity, we'll come right back in with another update. So keep it right here on WDRB for continuing weather updates.